Gamers, welcome to the game room. A lot of different locations going on this channel. We're still figuring things out around here. So, as you can see, we have a new article in the game room, Metaphor ReFantazio, which just released a few days ago. I kind of missed the release day because I was doing other things, and I was playing the demo because I didn't finish the demo in the time allotted to me. Granted, once the game did release, my shipment was a little delayed. So, you know, I finished the demo. And that is precisely what we're going to talk about today. The concept of video game demos. Because I'm sure we've all had many experiences with them, and I even have made many videos about video game demos in the past. On this channel, you can still find a Final Fantasy XVI demo review, and if you know where to look, I think you can still find a video of me talking about the Resident Evil 4 remake demo, and possibly even the Final Fantasy VII remake demo. Those videos never really got too many views, and they're not public anymore, but you might be able to find them. Must say that a demo doesn't come in a box like this. We'll go over this another day, probably. So of course, video game demos have been around for quite a while, but they gained a lot of prominence in the mid to late 1990s, probably more mid-90s. I mean, I wasn't around, but I've got all the history books. Now, I don't actually own any demo discs per se. I have some games that were demos. I mean, I've got Metal Gear Solid. I'm pretty sure that was a pretty popular demo on either a disc, like a compilation of demos, kind of one of those kind of discs, or something like that. Now, I've never really played a PlayStation 1 demo, because obviously, I wasn't really around. Like at all. I was gonna say I wasn't gaming back then, but I honestly, I wasn't even alive. So my experience with demos only really starts in like the PlayStation 3 era. Before that, you have demo discs, you got the Pizza Hut, you got the, you buy Brave Fencer Musashi, you get the demo disc for, I think it was Final Fantasy VIII. If you buy Zone of the Enders, which... I don't want to hate on that game because I feel like that game has a lot of fans, but man, it's a game. It's a game. I think the main reason people bought that game was to get the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo, which was the full Tanker chapter, so, I mean, I could just play the Tanker chapter and then imagine what it would be like to have to wait months for the rest of the game. I believe when they remastered Zone of the Enders for PlayStation 3, they included a demo for Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Pretty cool callback, honestly, and I did quite enjoy the demo of that game, even though I didn't get it through purchasing Zoe, I just downloaded it from the PlayStation Store, which is my experience with most demos throughout my gaming life. I think the first demo I ever played was actually on the DS, but it was very strange. You had to go to a Wii channel or something, and you could download demos onto your DS via Download Play, and you just play a little demo. I believe I played some kind of Dragon Ball game on the DS with that. Probably the first video game demo I ever played. And to that note, remote play or download play on the Nintendo DS was kind of like using a demo. Like if one of your friends had Mario Kart DS and you used download play to play it with them, it was almost like you were playing a trial version of Mario Kart DS. Now I'm trying to think, what are the games that really got me into demos? I mean, I would always play tons and tons of demos because obviously as a kid, you can't really buy so many games, and especially not every new release, let alone keep up with every new release or even know what's coming out when you're young. But I specifically remember playing a lot of Project Cross Zone on the 3DS. The 3DS was big for demos for me. Project Cross Zone, there were some Naruto games. I'm trying to remember. Those are the only ones that are coming to mind. I'm sure there was more. I'm 100% sure there was more. Demos have always served the primary function of showing the people what it's like to actually play this game. Giving them a fat slice, a chunk, just a big massive game just to enjoy. Now usually, demos are quite brief. You play like one section, one level, and then they thank you for playing, they say buy the game, and they peace out. But sometimes they get really special, much like Metaphor ReFantazio over here. And recently, we've seen a big push in very high-quality demos. Stuff like Dragon Quest XI, which gave you like the first 12 hours of the game or something, just to play completely how you want. You just have the game, and you have this just huge chunk of it, and you can just play it to your heart's content, and then buy the full game to play the rest. Granted, that's a super long game, so having 12 hours out of the like 100-hour run isn't like such a big thing to give away for free, but it's still super cool. And a lot of demos nowadays are almost like events in the gaming space, like when Stellar Blade got a demo, or either of the Final Fantasy VII remakes, or of course Metaphor ReFantazio. These demos getting released is a huge push to marketing, a huge push to building a community around the game, because there's such a low barrier to entry. Of course, with Stellar Blade and Final Fantasy, you had to have a PS5 for that. But even so, the ability to just play a big chunk, or just a significant chunk of these games before release, either to confirm your purchase or just to get a conversation going about the game and to connect with other people that are also looking forward to these games, has been a really invaluable experience in my recent years of gaming. I remember so vividly when Final Fantasy VII Remake demo dropped, because it was just such a crazy experience to finally have that game in your hands and just play it for the first time. Now that I've played Remake and Rebirth, and I'm now replaying Remake, I know those games back to front. The combat system in those games is second nature to me. But thinking about how I first encountered that combat, remembering how I felt when I first played the demo, is really interesting to me, because it was, in a way, it was unlike any game I'd ever played before. So I kinda just compared it a lot to other games. Of course, we can trace Final Fantasy VII Remake's gameplay lineage back through like FF13 and Kingdom Hearts and a bunch of stuff like that. But in my mind, I was like, oh, this is gonna be just like Kingdom Hearts. And then when it wasn't, I was like, that's kind of weird. And I also thought it was gonna be a lot more like Final Fantasy 15. And the longer we get like time removed from the release of 15, the more strange that combat system feels. That game also had multiple demos, now that I remember it. It had the episode Disque, which you only got when you purchased, going back to buying games to get demos for better games. You could only play Final Fantasy 15 episode Disc Guy when you purchased Final Fantasy Type 0, which was a remaster of a PSP game. They put it on PS4. It was like the first PS4 game that I owned. Let me actually find these. Alright, so there's this one. The aforementioned game with the aforementioned demo. And then I also got this game. I couldn't actually play the demo of this. This comes with Uncharted 4 multiplayer demo. Not a demo for Uncharted 4, just the multiplayer. So when I got my PS4, I kind of didn't have any PS4 games. 3 PS3 games and 1 PSP game, and a demo of a PS4 game. And this demo, I guess it was more of a playtest for the multiplayer. It wasn't around for long. So in early 2016, when I got my PS4, I couldn't even play that if I wanted to. These games, they seem so familiar to us now because obviously we've played the full releases. But back when we first tried the demo, everything just seems so new and different. It's weird, scary, especially Metaphor. There's so much stuff on the screen there. And of course, I'm used to that. I played Xenoblade too. But it was just very overwhelming. But now that I've got some more time with the game, I'm really getting used to it. Final Fantasy VII Remake was very overwhelming, is what I'm trying to say. And then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was just such a cool demo experience. It had 2 demos, actually. The first demo was basically the entire Nibelheim section, which you could skip over in the main game after playing the demo of it, which was just like an amazing, just like almost standalone section to experience. It told just everyone kind of reacted to that one section of the game almost separate from the rest of the game, because they're like, oh, like, yeah, Rebirth's coming out, but now we have the Nibelheim section. So, like, here's my review of the Nibelheim section and stuff. Like, we would talk about that. And that was kind of like our pre-release discussion, other than, you know, a lot of the stuff that was going on pre-release. It was like, we were just talking about this one episode. And then when you get to the other demo, which was like the Junon demo, where you actually get to run around, ride chocobos, you meet Mai for the first time, which when she first showed up, so if you play the demo, this doesn't happen in the main game, but if you play the demo, you see Mai before you ever see Chadley, and I honestly thought for a second there we were getting trans femme Chadley. I mean, congratulations, Chadley. We accept you. We all love you. Even before the Rebirth demo, the Final Fantasy XVI demo was such a big event in the gaming space. That felt like the world premiere of an epic TV show like Game of Thrones or something. It felt like we were all reacting to episode 1, and like episode 2 would come out next week. That's really what it felt like. So it was kind of weird in that game's case. It was like, oh man, I almost wish that this game was like episodic in a way, because I just loved the way that conversation took place. Everyone played the demo, and everyone was just talking about specifically the demo. And afterwards, when the main game is released, you obviously have to be like, okay, what chapter did you get up to? Like, what can I say and not say? Because we don't want to just spoil each other, because this game's quite long. And in my opinion, that game did lose some steam. Not that I think it would be especially improved by either cutting it up and making it episodic or other things. I made a whole video about that game. Go watch that video. It doesn't have that many views. The Metaphor demo was pretty similar. Not in the TV show aspect of it, but just the big community event aspect. Because everyone was super excited for this game. And I mean, they still are. Obviously, the game is out and everyone is playing it right now. It's like one of the highest, or the highest played JRPG on Steam. It sold 1 million copies in its first day, and it's really been popping off. Atlus and Sega have had such an amazing, like, just staggering year this year, and Metaphor, like, I couldn't really be happier with it. It's pretty much meeting all my expectations right now. But just getting that big slice of the game to enjoy. The demo ran me about 7 hours. And I couldn't even finish it by the time the main game actually released. Like, that's how long this thing was. Obviously, I was playing other games and I have other responsibilities, but you know. Now, there are some bad demos out there. Obviously, games like Metaphor, Dragon Quest XI, and even, I didn't mention this, but Unicorn Overlord over here had a fantastic demo, which actually had a time limit. There's a few of those, actually. Let's talk about the limitations of demos as well. Now, there is the very much less egregious, which is the time limits, which is this one here. It gave you about 7 hours to play, and you could pretty much do anything you want in the entire course of the game. Obviously, not past 7 hours. Granted, like, I don't know if anyone's done this, and like the story is good, so you shouldn't do this, but if you skipped all the cutscenes, I wonder how far you could actually get, or if you tried like speed running the demo or something. If anyone speed runs like strategy RPGs. Pretty famous examples of the time limit demos are, I think the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake demos were completely on a time limit. They were like, you have like 1 hour to do this thing and you can never do it again, or something like that. I feel like that's what it was. Maybe it was just the 2 remake demo, but I believe it was like one time only. Like you could only play through it once. Very strange. The Resident Evil 4 demo did not do that. Resident Evil 4 demo just gave you one section of the game, fairly short, but let you run through it a couple times. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that one. Of course, Resident Evil 4 Remake is basically a perfect game. It's basically a 10 out of 10 game, so you know, you really can't go bad with that one. I do recall that Star Ocean 2, the second story R, got a demo with a time limit as well, but that demo did have some weird gameplay restrictions. There was certain things in the combat that you were just locked off from in the demo that really not only restricted your play, but just made the whole game seem much less appealing than it actually was. Granted, as far as I'm aware, that game did end up being quite popular, and of course, even the original version has basically been hyped up to me since I learned about it back in like early 2010s YouTube area, when they were like, when people would always hype up the PS1 version and the PSP version. Maybe it had just released, or it was released pretty close around there, like 2010 era. But people have basically always been hyping up that game, and the remake looks absolutely fantastic. It's just unfortunate that the demo had certain shortcomings. Granted, I should get around to that game. I'm thinking about it now. I heard that the recent Visions of Mana game was amazing, but the demo was kind of weird. Apparently, it just shoots you into a random section of the game with basically no context, and doesn't really guide your hand very well. And also, you can't even transfer your save data or anything, because you are just playing a section that's kind of in the middle of the game or something. So that doesn't seem like the most fun experience or the best way to sell your game. I really think that this new age of demos that let you carry over your save data is super important. It's genuinely huge to actually selling games and getting people into them, because when you actually get to start a game for free, you quite literally get to try it before you buy it, and it gives you more incentive to buy it, because let's say in Metaphor you've already started min-maxing, you've already built up your archetypes, you've already inherited skills, you already have favorite party members, and now you can just completely continue with all of your progress into the main game, and there's so much more to do. Metaphor as well is particularly interesting because within the demo itself, after you finish the prologue of the game, which I honestly thought the prologue is completely linear. I think there's probably like a couple side quests you can do in it maybe. But after you finish that section of the game, I thought the demo was ending. Like, I thought I'd finished it. And then it was like, you have 3 days to do whatever you want. Because, of course, Metaphor is going with the kind of calendar system style that kind of the Persona games had. Granted, there's some nuances to it. It's kind of different. But they totally just gave you 3 days to do whatever you want. And in that time, like, you could find a completely, like, optional dungeon and do the whole thing. That's what I ended up doing. Ended up just running the optional dungeon and finishing the demo that way. But I'm sure, like, other people did other stuff, other side quests, other things you can find around. I don't necessarily know how much there was to find, but it was all there, and you could do basically whatever you wanted. I'm kind of just starting to remember a lot of the games that I played demos of. I remember the day the Nier Automata demo dropped. I remember I was sick that day or something, and it was fall, there was leaves everywhere, I was home from school, I was in high school at the time, and I was just like, shit, this Nier thing is getting pretty hyped up. I've never played the original Nier. I think I had played Drakengard 3 at that point, actually. I've never finished Drakengard 3, but I have played it. So I was super eager to try it out, and just having, like, that first section of the game, dude, like, that was so sick. And I don't think, you couldn't transfer your save data or anything, but it was a pretty, like, short section, short demo. The Stellar Blade demo from earlier this year was pretty fun. I haven't bought that game yet, but it seems pretty cool. I liked the combat. The story was okay. I've heard that it gets better, so I'm excited to see it get better. And I like Nikke. That game has pretty good writing, what can I say? The idea of the whole combat challenge thing at the end of the demo was pretty cool. It was way too hard for me to actually complete, or at least too tough for me to want to put in the effort of completing it. Let's say that. I really liked that Final Fantasy XVI did a similar thing too, where it gave you the main beginning section of the game, but then it also gave you the little extra bit at the end where you can kind of just do that whole, basically, first dungeon with more icon abilities than you're even supposed to have at that point in the story, and just go completely crazy with it, really testing out the combat and seeing what it has to offer. And it was a great showcase for that combat. It was just too bad that in the main game, it was a bit too long for that combat to, you know, stay its welcome. Now, I've made videos about the Trails series in the past. Obviously, I love it now, but I remember in like early 2020, they released the demo for Trails of Cold Steel 3, and they were like, guys, you can start with this one. It's fine. Obviously, they were just trying to market the game. They wanted people to buy it. That's fine. They also re-released 1 and 2 on PS4 the year prior, so no issues. But I tried the demo because, you know, that was basically the only accessible bit of Trails content that I could get at the time because it was free. And I had no idea what was going on. It was so intimidating, and just jumping into it, I was like, what is this? Like, I don't know what this is. Like, I didn't get it. I didn't like it. And I shouldn't have even played it because, well, not that I necessarily got spoiled by anything. I barely remember the contents of the demo. I just remember thinking it was fucking weird. I remember Duvalie was there. I mean, that's basically the only character from Cold Steel 2 that was in that demo that I recognized. I think there were some other characters there. I don't really remember. That demo just completely put me off and almost put me off of the Trails series in general for a while there. Granted, I did play Trails in the Sky later that same year, so, you know. Overall, demos are really cool. I love the idea that you can just genuinely have such a big part of a game for free and just play it and then still support the official release. It's a really pro-consumer strategy to actually release these quite long demos that we've seen recently. And now the short demos they're fine. Even if you can't save your progress, it's still worth playing if you want to play that game or if you want to try it out. And I think it's really cool just to be able to, but when you can save your progress, when you have such free range to do whatever you want within a demo, that is something really special because it's basically the full game, but before the full game. So yeah, video game demos are pretty cool, and they've been pretty cool for a while. If anything I just said was even vaguely intelligible, leave a like, comment, possibly subscribe, tune into the however many uploads, however long, however when uploads of the Brotagonist channel. Hopefully, I want to do more of these, but I say that every single video, and there's always months in between. But you know, Brotagonist, subscriptions, super chats. That's about all I have to say. Alright, peace.